Hello, and welcome to Big Future Live. My name is Layla. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm so excited to be kicking off tonight's Big Future Live event, all about college loans for students and parents. A little bit about me. I just graduated high school. I have graduation next week, actually. I'm going to SUNY Oneonta for early education, and I'm from Valley Stream. Okay, from Long Island, New York. Anyways, and I'm also a Big Future ambassador. I'm one of over 9,000 high school student leaders who help others to plan for life after high school. I became a Big Future ambassador because I'm already an NSHSS ambassador, and they kind of do the same thing, as in focusing on helping students figure out what they want to do after high school. Considering, not gonna lie, I've been really grinding within school for the past few years. So that being my main focus, as in to figure out how am I going to take all that I've accomplished over these past few years into applying it to my future. I also want to help other students who feel lost or just is in that mindset of only focusing on school and grades and then realizing that there's other stuff besides that could form them into an amazing person in their future. Anywho, thank you so much for joining us today. Many of you are finishing up school for the year and gearing up for summer, so you could be anywhere today, but we're glad you decided to spend this time with us. For those of you who don't know, Big Future Live is a series of virtual community events where you connect with college reps, career experts, and peers to help you plan for life after high school. Big Future Live was created so you can get your questions answered to plan for your future your way. As you consider your college options, you may realize you need to borrow funds to pay for college. You might be asking yourself, what are the different types of loans? What should you consider before borrowing? Or how much should you borrow? Well, you're in the right place. We're joined by financial aid experts from Boston College, Florida International University, and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, who are ready to answer your questions. So get your questions ready, and welcome to Big Future Live family.
Thank you so much, Layla, and thank you to all of the students and caring adults joining us today. It's almost the weekend, and you could be anywhere, but you're with us today, so we're really thankful. Welcome to our Big Future Live event, all about college loans for students and parents. My name is Greg. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm on the Big Future team. The Big Future team is a group of former educators, parents, college and career planning experts, and really just a group of folks who are committed to helping students like you plan for life after high school. Now, as Layla said, Big Future Live is here to answer your questions. So we don't have a ton of PowerPoint slides. We have a couple, but we don't have a ton of PowerPoint slides that we're going to go through tonight. Really, the focus is going to be answering your questions from our students and, of course, the adults that care about them. Now, our event tonight is only 45 minutes, and I'm looking at the audience here, and we have a ton of folks who are coming in, which means we're going to have a ton of questions to get through. So let's get right to it and meet our panelists for today. All right. Hello, hello. I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and tell us 4 things. Your name, where you call home, what you do now, and also give us a fun fact about the school you work at. And Cindy, I'll start with you.
Sure. My name is Cindy McGee. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I am the director of loan programs at UNC Chapel Hill. And a fun fact about the school that I work at is that it is the oldest public university in the United States.
Wow, I didn't know that. We're getting a history lesson here too, folks. Thanks so much, Cindy. Katie, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Greg. My name is Katie Conrad, and I am the Senior Associate Director of Financial Aid at Florida International University in Miami, Florida, where I also live. And a fun fact about my university is almost the opposite of what Cindy said, which is we were founded in 1972 with a class of about 5,600 students. And since then, we have grown to be the 8th largest public university in the country.
Wow, that's amazing, that amount of growth in such a little time. So thanks so much, Katie. Thanks for being here. And last but certainly not least, Ebony.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ebony Marsala. I am the Director of Financial Aid at Boston College. I currently reside in Lowell, Massachusetts, which is a suburb of the Boston area. And a fun fact about my school, by designation, technically Boston College is a university, but we can never call ourselves that because one already exists. So we will always be Boston College. So fun fact.
That is a fun fact, and that would get pretty confusing, wouldn't it, Ebony?
Yes.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for being a part of Big Future Live. Now, I already see that there are a lot of questions coming in from our students and our caring adults. But before we get to all of your questions, we want to know who is joining us today. So we're going to launch a quick poll. You should see a quick poll launch on your screen right now. We want to know, are you a student in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade? What grade are you in? And if you're not a student, if you're a parent, tell us what grade your student is in, just to give us an idea of who's in the virtual room with us today. And while you all are answering that quick poll, just a couple of housekeeping items. There's an Ask a Question box on the bottom of your screen, right about here, where you can type in your questions. Again, we have a lot of folks who are joining today, so we're going to answer as many questions as possible. So please don't be shy. If you think of a question, type it in. Chances are, if you're thinking it, someone else is thinking it as well. So we want to get to as many as possible. And if you miss anything during tonight's event, you have to walk away from your computer for a moment or from your phone. Don't worry at all. The recording is going to be available later on demand at bigfuture.org/live. So with that, let's see who is joining us today. All right, it looks like most of you have responded, and about 65% of you all are seniors, which makes sense. You're probably curious about that next step because it's imminent. Another 25% of you are juniors. And then we have a sprinkling of sophomores and freshmen here who are trying to get started early, which is great. Love to see the preparation there. Well, no matter what grade you're in, tonight is going to be helpful. Tonight, we're going to answer some of your questions. So thanks so much for being here. Now, we're going to get to your questions. Don't worry. But before we do so, we want to make sure that we are sharing some basic financial aid information and information about loans to get you started, to get you brainstorming those really good questions that you have. So with that, I'm actually going to pass it over to my colleague, Andrea, to share some financial aid and loan basics with you all.
Great. Thanks, Greg. So my name is Andrea Moralja. I work at the College Board. I'm on the same team as Greg. I work on the financial aid part of Big Future. And before I worked at the College Board, which is where I've been for about 10 years, I worked in the financial aid office at the University of Rochester, which is really up north in New York, right on the border of the Finger Lakes. So it's chilly up there. So I'm going to share a couple of basic financial aid things with you, like Greg said, just to kind of get this started and get us moving. There's going to be a couple main topics I'm going to cover today. The first one is, what is financial aid? The second one, what are the different types of financial aid? What is this thing called FAFSA? What about all the other financial aid applications? And then I'm going to give you just a very quick taste of what are the different types of college loans. From there, we'll just be taking your questions the rest of the time. So at a super high level, financial aid is any type of money or funding that's available to help you pay for college. This can be, loans and grants, which we're going to get into in a second, but there's two major ways that you qualify for financial aid. One is that it's based on a skill, talent, or accomplishment that you have. So that's usually merit-based aid. A lot of times people think of that as scholarships. So it could be sports, it could be music, it could be your awesome grades, but something like that gets you a scholarship. The other type of financial aid there is that financial aid that's based about how your family's financial strength is. So a lot of times you'll hear that as being need-based aid. So this is money that the financial aid office looks and says, this student needs this money in order to be able to afford our college. So merit, need-based, that's like probably the biggest divide that you'll hear about in financial aid. Then once we break that down, there's a lot of different types underneath that. So there's scholarships and grants, which could be need-based or merit-based. But the key thing they have in common with each other is that they're free or gift aid. So you don't need to repay this. So if you get like a $10,000 scholarship, which would be awesome, you don't have to pay it back. It's just free money. Now, one quick caveat to that is although it's free money and you don't have to pay it back, sometimes you have to maintain a certain grade level to keep it. The second type of financial aid I want to make sure doesn't get forgotten is work. So access to jobs where you can earn money while you're in school is a type of financial aid. So I know that this was really important to me when I was a student. I had a great on-campus job that really helped me cover a lot of my expenses. Federal work study is probably the most common example of this that you'll hear. And the third part, what we're going to be focusing on tonight, is loans. So these are funds that you or your parent borrows, and they have to be paid back. So that's, I think most people think of scholarships and they think of loans. They forget about work. Tonight, we're going to think about loans, but keep in mind that all three of those are really important types of financial aid. So how do you get financial aid? A lot of times what you hear about is the FAFSA, which is awesome and probably the most important thing you should be focused on. The FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. This is generally going to be required by all schools when you're applying for need-based aid, and some schools even want this if you're applying for merit-based aid. So it's really important that you look at this. The FAFSA is always used to award federal financial aid, but schools may also use it to award their institutional or their school-based financial aid, and some states use it to award their state aid. So it's super important that you get your FAFSA done. FAFSA goes live each year, sometime between October 1st and December 31st for the upcoming year. So just make sure you're keeping an eye on the FAFSA. Another common application that you may hear about is the CSS profile. There's a couple hundred schools who use the CSS profile to award their institutional or their school-based aid. So in those cases, you'll fill out both the FAFSA and the profile at those schools, and the school will use each application for slightly different purposes. It's another really important application to keep your eye out for. Lastly, as I mentioned, you might see some other smaller types of applications. So some states don't use the FAFSA, and you also need to do a state application to be eligible for aid from your state. And then some schools have applications that you need to complete in addition to or instead of some of these other forms that I've talked about. So the number one thing that I would tell you to do here is to ask questions and stay connected to your school, because each school you apply to is going to have different application requirements and different deadlines. If you're confused, don't worry. We're here to answer your questions. Just reach out to your school. So getting into the meat of what we're going to talk about tonight, I just want to give you a really quick breakdown of loans. So loans can be taken out either by the student or by parents of students. Loans can be available through the federal government. So you might have heard about these. You hear these words like subsidized and unsubsidized and plus, and you're like, what are those? Those are the federal loans. So subsidized and unsubsidized students or unsubsidized loans are generally going to be available to students who qualify for the aid that the FAFSA helps you get. The parent loan and the plus loan is the parent loan for undergraduate students, and that's going to be available to parents, again, with a separate application in addition to the FAFSA, okay? So that's important. There are also lots of loans available through private lenders, and these aren't bad, right? So you want to really be evaluating whether you want to do federal loans, private loans, some combination of the two when you're thinking about how to fund college. A key thing to remember with private loans is that students are almost always going to need a cosigner to get a private loan. These are going to be credit-based. So I hope this gave you guys a little bit of taste of what's about to come up. We look forward to answering all your questions.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I think that really gave everyone a good baseline of what the conversation is all about. All right, but Cindy, Ebony, Katie, are you all ready?
We're ready.
All right, let's dive in then. Our first question is going to be for you, Ebony, and this is from Jason. Jason wants to know, can anyone qualify for a school loan?
Technically, yes. The first caveat, though, is that you need to apply for the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, to qualify for that brand of loans. As Andrea mentioned, the direct subsidized or unsubsidized loan, those loans do not require any credit check. So when you complete the FAFSA and it is successful, you submitted all your paperwork that's required for that, you will be offered a loan, either a combination of subsidized and unsubsidized, or kind of the unsubsidized. It really depends on the information from FAFSA. For the other loans, private loans, et cetera, you will have to have a credit check. And so again, as long as you're a student or the parent of a student attending a higher education entity, you'll be able to apply for those loans. And based on credit, you may be approved.
Thanks, Ebony. Super helpful. Our next question is going to go to you, Cindy. And this question is from Joanne. Joanne wants to know, how far in advance should a student apply for a federal loan? How far in advance should a parent apply for a loan? Oh, Cindy, I think you're on mute there.
So sorry, the cardinal sin of web meetings. That's a good question. I usually encourage students and parents to start applying for loans about a month or two ahead of the billing due date. So if we're talking about fall 2023, most schools start classes around mid-August. Most bills come due around the same time, maybe around the beginning of August. So now is a good time to start applying for loans for the upcoming school semester. That being said, if you're a little bit behind, you probably still have time. I mean, usually the thing is that you want to have your loans in place before the first disbursement so that you'll have what's called an on-time disbursement for the bill that you're trying to pay with the loans.
Great, that gives us a better idea of timeline, Cindy. Appreciate it. Katie, this next question is for you, and we have a question from Melissa. Melissa wants to know about federal loans. Do federal loans generally have a lower interest rate and better terms than private loans?
That's actually a very great question. And yes, federal loans do tend to have better terms than a private loan. The interest rate is going to be fixed depending upon the year that the student's borrowing the loan. So for the upcoming year, for a federal direct loan, the interest rate for an undergraduate student is 5.5%. And that will be fixed for the life of that loan that the student is borrowing. As far as private loans, because they are based on credit, and an undergraduate student would typically need to have a cosigner for a private loan. The private loan may have a higher interest rate depending on the student, borrower, and the cosigner's credit history. They also may not have the same types of repayment benefits. They may not be eligible for the public service loan forgiveness programs that are available through the federal loans. They may not be eligible for deferments and forbearances, meaning that on a temporary basis, if a student isn't able to make payments on the loan, they could defer the payment until they're able to make the payments. There are just certain benefits that are available for federal loan borrowers that aren't available for private student loan borrowers.
Thanks for that, Katie. Ebony, this next question is for you. I think in your last response, you mentioned credit, and Aaliyah has a question. If you don't pay your student loans on time, will it damage your credit?
Yes. Yes, it's very important that when your loans go into repayment, that you make on-time payments or work with the lender, the agency that provided you with that funding, because most loans, especially federal loans, have different repayment options. So from the federal loans, they understand that situations occur. So they do have this option where students can elect to put their loans in forbearance or deferment, depending on if they're enrolled in a graduate program, et cetera. So if you're having economic hardships, it's really important to talk to the lender, those that provided the funding, to see what options are available, but never just stop paying on the loan, because yes, not paying your loans will impact your credit, which will have bigger ramifications like purchasing a home, et cetera. So always work with your lender if you're having difficulties.
Thanks, Ebony, and great question, Aaliyah. Just to follow up on that really quick, Ebony, can you explain to us the difference between forbearance and deferment?
Sure, sure. Forbearance is a period of non-payment, usually based on some sort of circumstance, again, a financial hardship or other difficulty where they postpone your payments on that loan for a period of time. Deferment is more that you have a situation or a period of non-payment where you are participating in an activity and that's why you're not able to pay your loan. So the best example is while you're in grad school, your loans are deferred because you are pursuing other educational opportunities. And so it puts it in deferment. It kind of puts a pause on that interest accrual, et cetera. So that's kind of the difference. Both are things, well, let me not say that. Deferment is something that most lenders will be aware of when you enroll at another institution, depending on how they report the enrollment. But it is always good to check with your lenders to ensure that you've opted into deferment. Forbearance is something you'll always have to elect into. It doesn't happen automatically. So you'll have to reach out to them, potentially fill out some paperwork, and perhaps submit some documentation for forbearance.
Great. Thanks for clearing that up, Ebony. I know there are a lot of glossary terms for students out there, and I want to make sure that some of that's really clear. Cindy, this next question is for you. It's from Christine. Christine wants to know, how common is it for students to get a loan from their financial aid offer, and which loan is the best to choose?
Sure, that's a good question. Borrowing trends differ greatly at different schools depending on the cost of attendance and how much aid your school is how much gift aid your school has, and, sort of like the demographics of the students that attend that school. It varies widely. And I always tell students to sort of just, don't feel any type of way if you are or are not borrowing a loan. Sort of just focus on what you need to do. I don't think there's a good way to answer that first question. I don't know what the percentage of people that borrow student loans is. It's different at every school. You can research borrowing trends at different universities online. All of that information can be found. The best type of loan, I usually encourage students to look into borrowing federal loans first. The interest rate is usually the lowest, and some of the repayment terms are more friendly for borrowers. After that, if you need additional funding, you can look into private educational loans. If you have really good credit or a great cosigner, you can sometimes get great interest rates with private loans too. And then there's a third category of loans that some schools do have and some schools don't. There are sometimes institutional loans, like the school that I work at, UNC. We have a pretty robust institutional loan program where we try to mirror the terms of federal loans so that those loans are a little bit more friendly for students. So whatever school you plan on going to, you could always ask if there are any institutional loans available for you to borrow. But whatever type of loan you borrow, make sure that you do thorough research to make sure that it's the best loan for you, because some loan that may be best for someone else may not be best for you. So try to make a good decision for yourself.
That's great advice, Cindy. It's good to know that some institutions have institutional loans in addition to federal and private loans that students and parents can look into. Thank you for that. Our next question is going to be for you, Katie. And Derek and Kira have similar questions here, so I'm going to try to combine them a little bit. What is the best type of loan if you only need to pay for part of the tuition costs? Is it a federal student loan, a Parent Plus loan? What do you think is going to be best if you only need to pay for, say, the first 2 years of college?
Okay, so the best type of federal student loan is always going to be a subsidized student loan. It is based on need, so not every student will qualify for the subsidized loan. But the subsidized and the unsubsidized loans for undergraduate students have exactly the same interest rate. The difference between the two is that an unsubsidized loan does accrue interest while the student is enrolled in school. So if they're not making a payment on that interest payment, the interest is capitalized, which means at the end of it, it takes the interest that's accrued while you've been in school and adds it to the principal of the loan so that you end up paying interest on your interest. So if you can make that unsub interest payment while you're enrolled in school, that would be great. So the best type of loan is always going to be that federal direct loan, whether it be subsidized or unsubsidized. And I did peek at the second part of that question that came through, and I think what he was getting at, or she, I can't remember, was getting at was that if maybe I don't need to borrow a loan for the first 2 years, but I qualify for a subsidized loan, should I go ahead and borrow it during the first 2 years, even though I don't really need the money until the second 2 years? And that's a very savvy student, and a great question. You could do that. If you qualify for a subsidized loan for the first 2 years, probably going to qualify for the second 2 years as well. And I would encourage students to only borrow the money that they need when they need it. If you anticipate like making a lot of money and not being eligible for a subsidized loan for your junior and senior year, sure, you could borrow that and put it in a savings account. However, you wouldn't want to do that with an unsubsidized loan because, like I said, that unsub loan is accruing interest from the time it's dispersed. I hope that helps.
Thanks for that response, Katie. And Kira and Derek, I hope that was helpful. Thanks for the question. Ebony, this next question is for you. It's from Charles, and Charles is a parent. Charles says, I'm sorry, this one is for Beth, actually. Beth wants to know, my daughter is going to college in the fall, applied for a federal loan in FAFSA, and was only awarded $2,500 unsubsidized loan. Beth and her family now have to borrow almost $30,000. If they apply for a Parent Plus loan versus a private loan, what is the advantage and how much interest should they expect to pay?
That's a really great question. Yeah, that's a big question. A really good question. I would say that I would, if I were you, just confirm kind of looking at that financial aid award. For a first-year student, the federal government does set limits on the amount that they are able to provide to a first-year student. And so it could be that it's what you're referencing is $2,500 per term, but I would definitely check to see what is the amount offered for the year, just because for the federal direct loan, $2,500 is not that maximum for the year. So I would definitely just confirm that piece to make sure we're not missing anything on that award letter. As far as the private or parent loan options, the interest that will accrue and what's best, that's not really something that I could answer like in this discussion place, because every private loan has different terms, interest rates, repayment options, et cetera. So what I would direct you to, though, is looking at some student loan calculators. There's a variety of areas for assistance where you can take the information about the federal direct Parent Plus loan and compare it to private loans, and it'll list all the terms out so you can see if there are different repayment options, forgiveness options. Is the interest rate fixed? Do you have to pay while the student's in school? Those are all the things you should be looking at when comparing the loans, looking at how that interest rate accrues. Is it daily? How does it compound? Is it yearly? Like looking at all those various things. I would say a great place to go is studentaid.gov, because the federal government's website will have information about the Federal Plus loan. And then it also talks a little bit about private loans. And so at least where you can get good qualified information. So I'd say that's your first stop, to kind of look at that page. And it talks a little bit about smart borrowing and gives other resources. That's the easiest link that I could give you to start your research. But it is important to do your research. I know that there's a lot of information out there and it can seem daunting, especially as a parent, but it does involve some research to find what's best for you and your family.
Thank you for that, Ebony. And while we're on the subject of resources, if you're looking for other financial aid resources, you can also use Big Future. So let me share my screen here for one moment. If you go to bigfuture.org, and this is what the homepage looks like. If you go under Pay for College, you can go all the way down to scholarship grants and loans for more articles and other information. While you're getting lots of your questions answered tonight, you can also browse some of these topics about types of college loans. And someone asked earlier which college loans are the best. We have a quick guide on how to determine that, how to use student loans to pay for college, more about private loans, and then also more information about federal loans too. So again, if you're looking for other resources, definitely studentaid.gov. You can also head to Big Future for some of those additional resources as well. Back to some of our questions. Charles, I want to get back to your question, and this one is going to be for Cindy. Cindy, Charles wants to know, his son is going to enroll this spring at UNC. Congratulations to your son, Charles. And his financial aid award indicated that he was eligible for subsidized loans. Can you provide more information on how Charles' son would accept those?
Yeah, sure. So I assume that it's UNC Chapel Hill, which is where I work. So I'm glad that I got this question. And if it wasn't UNC Chapel Hill, I assume that most UNC school system schools do a similar process where when you get a financial aid package, we send an email to the student's email. Financial aid award for how to take. Sorry, say it again.
I think you're back now. You're frozen for a moment, but if you could just start at the beginning when you said something goes to the student's email.
Oh, sure. The award letter goes to the student's email address, and that award letter contains information for how to view the award and how to take action on the loan offer. Also, our website has instructions for how to accept the loan, and whether it's UNC Chapel Hill or any other UNC school system, or, you know, probably a lot of schools across the nation, I'm sure, have financial aid websites that you can find more information on. And then if you still can't find the answer there, please always reach out to the financial aid office if you still have questions. We're here to help. If it is UNC Chapel Hill, our loan email address is ssa_loans@unc.edu, but you can find it all on our website. But the basic quick answer is to log into his Connect Carolina portal and click accept next to the loan. That's how you would do it at UNC Chapel Hill.
Thanks, Cindy, and thanks for the question, Charles. Appreciate it. Hope that was helpful. Our next question is going to be for you, Katie. This is from Michael. Michael wants to know, should I take a new loan at the start of each semester, or should I take it for the full 4 years of their undergraduate degree?
All right. Let me start a little bit further back in that question. You do have to complete a FAFSA for each year. So each year you'll complete your FAFSA, and then each year you'll receive a financial aid offer from the institution where you're attending. Typically, that financial aid notice is going to be for the full academic year. Usually it doesn't include the summer, but sometimes it does. So you'll get a financial aid offer for the fall and spring semesters if it's a semester school. Most institutions will say, go ahead and accept for the year, but you can also accept a loan for the fall term and then change the amount for the spring semester. At FIU, we do what's called a borrower-based academic year. So each semester is its own loan, and you can accept the full amount that's being offered. You can also decrease the amount that has been offered. We'll offer the full amount of the eligibility, but you may not need that much to cover for that semester. So you might choose to accept only $1,000 of the loan because that's all you needed to cover your expenses. You wouldn't be able to do a loan for the full 4 years. It would be limited to a year at a time at maximum.
Great. Thanks so much, Katie, and thanks for the question, Michael. Our next question will be for you, Ebony. This is from Yoon. Yoon wants to know, do you apply for a state loan in the state in which you reside or the state in which your school is located?
That is a good question. It really depends on the terms for that state loan. So, for example, in Massachusetts, we have MEFA, which is the Massachusetts Educational Finance Authority. They're a nonprofit organization, so you do not have to live in Massachusetts to apply for their loan. If your actual state financial aid agency, for example, so here in Massachusetts, it's OSFA, they have a variety of loans. Those loans are only applicable to students who are living or reside in Massachusetts. However, they typically are awarded through schools. So therefore, the school's only awarding it to Massachusetts state residents, for example. So I will assume the same applies across every state, that if there are state-based loans, they're awarding them to eligible students. But if there are state entities that offer loans, like a MEFA, there's a FIA, there's all different state agencies, nonprofits, they offer loans to all college students. So you really have to look at the loan and see the terms. But if the term does express, oh, you need to be a resident of the state, or you need to attend a college in that state, that'll give you a clue on kind of where you fit and how you qualify. Hope that helps. Good question.
Thanks, Ebony. Thanks for shedding a little bit more light on eligibility there. Cindy, the next question is for you. I'm going to try to combine a couple of questions. Grace wants to know, what is a cosigner? And Jess wants to know, what exactly does a loan say, or like what are the clauses? So generally, what are like the basic terms of a loan? If I could reword your question, Jess. Thank you.
Sure. So a cosigner is just a person that agrees to sign the loan document with you, where if you were for some reason unable to make the loan payments, your cosigner is signing, saying that they would then become responsible for making those loan payments on your behalf. A lot of times, if you apply for a loan and you're denied, if you don't get approved for the loan, you could reapply with a cosigner that maybe has better credit in the hopes of getting approved with a cosigner. And then the second question, what are the clauses? So I think maybe what you're asking is what is a loan? Maybe the basic, definition of a loan is money that someone is lending to you that you will have to pay back. And the terms of all these different kinds of loans are different depending on which loan program you choose. So for federal loans, you're repaying those loans after you graduate. A lot of times for private loans, you're going to start repaying those loans while you're still in school. Sometimes you can get deferment with private loans, sometimes not. And then I think most institutional loan programs would probably allow you to repay after you are done with school. I hope that's helpful. I think I answered the question. I'm not sure. And, if there's a specific loan that you have questions about that are part of your financial aid package, you can always reach out to your school's financial aid office to ask more about that particular type of loan, and someone there should be able to give you more info.
Thanks so much, Cindy. Katie, this next one is for you. This is from Mary Pat. Mary Pat wants to know, what should you do if your financial circumstances have changed since submitting the FAFSA, which is based on your 2021 tax return? Can you send an update to your FAFSA?
You cannot send an update to your FAFSA, but what you can do is reach out to the financial aid office where you plan to attend. And with that, you need to let them know that you have some special circumstances and would like to request what we consider a professional judgment. What that allows us to do is collect some documentation from you to show that you've had a dramatic change in income from what we call the prior year. So 2 years prior is what you're putting on your FAFSA. If your income now, or that income that you had to report on the FAFSA, doesn't accurately reflect your financial situation today, we can collect that documentation from you as financial aid administrators and be able to make adjustments to your FAFSA through what we call professional judgment. So that would allow us to use a more accurate current reflection of your financial situation to determine financial aid eligibility. So the key words there are professional judgment and special circumstances. And you need to contact the financial aid office where you plan to attend to request that process get started.
Thanks so much, Katie. Ebony, Abiwan wants to know, their son is already admitted to a college. Is it too late for them to apply for a loan if they didn't get any scholarships?
It is rarely ever too late. So no, it is not too late. You can start the application process, especially if we're talking about the federal loans. There's plenty of time to do that. And so I would encourage you that, yes, if you did not necessarily fill out that FAFSA form, feel free to start that process. All colleges, as far as I know, will review that information, award you your federal aid eligibility, which will include loans. And after you've secured that federal aid eligibility, you can use that information and, if needed, determine what you'll need from a private source. So no, it is not too late. There is still time, and don't worry about that. So great question.
It's not too late.
Might I jump in with just a
Yes.
little piece of information? Because we have a lot of students who just graduated from high school who will actually be starting school for the summer. So that summer term may be a part of this current 22-23 academic year. So if that is the case, you would also need to complete a 2022-2023 FAFSA to get a loan for the summer term. That deadline is June 30th. Yes. So if you are starting for your first semester in the summer term, like this month or next month, you would need to fill out your FAFSA for this current academic year, and the deadline is June 30th for that.
Thank you, Katie. I have never experienced that, so it's good that you are here.
We have lots of summer starts, so I wanted to add that in.
Thank you.
Super helpful. Thank you, Ebony and Katie. Thanks for tag teaming that one. All right, I think we're almost at time. I can't believe time has flown by. We are going to have one last question, and then we're going to do a lightning round of just some final advice from our panelists here. So Cindy, the last question is for you, and this is from Sammy. Sammy wants to know what payment options are available for paying off loans monthly while you're still in college.
Good question. There are no lenders for educational loans that will not allow you to pay monthly. So, sorry, that was a bad way of phrasing it. No matter what loan you borrow for college, you are allowed to make monthly payments while you're in school, and we encourage that. That's a great plan to make sure that you're staying ahead of your payments. It doesn't matter if it's a private loan, a federal loan, an institutional loan. If there's a lender that tells you that you cannot make monthly payments, do not borrow that loan from them. You'll just have to reach out to whatever lender you're using to set up those monthly payment plans.
Thanks, Cindy. And I lied. I'm going to do one last question before I do our lightning round, because I think this is a good one too. Zarif wants to know, should I wait to confirm my federal subsidized and unsubsidized loans until I hear back from my wait lists, like from my waitlist schools? Ebony, can you take that one for us?
I mean, you're giving it to me and I'm like, it depends. So it's not a hard and fast definitive answer. I would say, if you've committed to an institution, even while you're waiting, I would go through their process, meet their deadlines. And if, let's say, you do need to attend a different institution, you can just indicate to them you no longer need their loan. So I would say, whatever your institution that you are committed to is asking you to do, meet those deadlines. Deadlines are important. So do that. If they're asking you to make a decision, do that. And then you can always cancel it. And even if, you take a loan out during the year and you change your mind, you have the ability to cancel it. So even though you're signing things and agreeing, you have the ability to change your mind as it relates to federal loans. You don't have to feel like once you make a decision, like during the year, there's no going back. So there is the ability to make adjustments. But I would say follow their deadlines just in case that's where you'll be in the fall. I think that's the best plan.
Great advice, Ebony. Thank you so much. And we're just going to do really quick lightning round from our panelists here. What's the most important thing you want students and parents to know about college loans? In one sentence, lightning round. Cindy, you're up.
Sure. The best piece of advice I have for college loans is to try to take a very controlled approach to the loans and do thorough research in advance. Make sure you know the interest, the repayment, all of that stuff ahead of time. That's not something that you want to find out down the road. You don't want it to be a surprise. And secondly, don't wait until your tuition payment is due. You don't want to borrow a loan under duress. You want to do it with plenty of time in advance so that you're not doing something out of control. Just try to stay in control, take it nice and easy. Do your research now.
Awesome. Research and planning. Thanks, Cindy. Katie, what about you?
This might be a run-on sentence because you said I could only use one. Almost every institution is going to show you on your aid offer what you are eligible to borrow in federal student loans. Just because it's on your aid offer does not mean you have to accept those loans. Only borrow what you really need to cover your educational expenses. I repeat that. Only what you really need to cover your educational expenses. But that being said, keep in mind you will have expenses that aren't charged by the institution. So you will have travel, you will have to do your laundry, you will have to eat, you will have to do those other things that you may not be thinking about. It's not just your tuition payment. So be thinking about the cost of attendance at your institution as well. But only borrow what you really, really need.
All right, only borrow what you need. Great advice, Katie. And Ebony, close us out here.
Closing us out, I'm going to follow up with what Katie said. And my sentence is, loans are not evil. They are meant to assist us as needed. And so again, you want to make reasonable, responsible decisions about what you need. You want to use a variety of resources, direct payments, outside scholarships, the school's financial aid, and then go into those loan resources. But always think responsibly, know these will have to be repaid, and make good decisions as you're going into these agreements. So that's my best advice.
Thanks, Ebony. And thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you so much for answering questions. Andrea, thank you so much for giving our mini presentation at the beginning here. And thank you to all of these students and caring adults joining Big Future Live. We'd love to hear how today's session went. So after this event closes, you'll be directed to a feedback survey. Please complete it. It helps us make these events even better. And tonight is actually our last Big Future Live event of the season. We're coming back, don't worry. We'll be back in the fall with more virtual community events to answer your college and career planning questions. But in the meantime, you can head to bigfuture.org/live to check out some of our previous recordings, as well as some great resources to help you on your path toward life after high school. Thank you, everyone so much, and have a wonderful night and a great summer.